Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. So today we're going to be talking about dealing with burnout as a writer. Burnout is a very common problem that happens to a lot of writers, a lot of creative people, and honestly just a lot of people in general. It happens when you have to push yourself beyond capacity for too long a time, or when you repeat the same tasks for too long of a time without variation. That can lead to you having no energy to create. Burnout isn't necessarily like writer's block. Writer's block happens when you don't know how to write or you don't know what to write. Burnout happens when you're simply out of energy. You might want to write, but you just don't have the energy to do it because you've exhausted yourself. It is definitely a very common problem. Most writers that I know have dealt with it, if not dealt with it more than once. I myself have dealt with it more than once. So in today's video, I'm just going to be talking about what to do if you're dealing with burnout as a writer and some strategies to get out of it. Tip number one is to take breaks as soon as you feel you need them. Like I just mentioned, burnout usually happens when we have to push ourselves beyond capacity. So if you feel like you need a break, it's important to take it as soon as possible because this can prevent burnout in the first place. The more you're pushing yourself beyond capacity, the worse that burnout will get. So if you're feeling tired and you feel like you need a break, just take one now. In fact, breaks can be an important part of managing your creative process, whether that's just taking a day off here or there, taking a week off here or there. It's really important to allow yourself to rest and recharge. So as soon as you start to feel burned out, just take a little break because it's better just take a little break now than need to take a huge break later because you're dealing with a terrible burnout. When you take breaks, I would recommend approaching it almost a little strategically. Set an end date to your break because if you don't, well, the break can kind of just go on indefinitely and it can be really hard to pull yourself out of. The worst writing burnout that I ever had happened when I was a student, and as soon as the semester was over, I just stopped writing. I didn't write for a couple months, and trying to pull myself out of that break was almost worse than the burnout itself, right? It's like I created almost huge writing slump as a way of dealing with the burnout. So what I would recommend, set an end date for your break. Let's say you say, okay, I'm gonna take a week off. A week from now, I'm gonna reevaluate. And if I feel like I still need rest, then I'll maybe extend the break a little. If I feel like that's good and I feel well rested now, then I'll get back to writing. It's also important that you kind of enjoy your break guilt-free. If you spend your whole break from writing thinking about what you should be doing and all the work you should be doing and how you should be producing right now, it's not going to be a very effective break because you're just stressing yourself out. Really enjoy your time off writing. Read a book, watch a show, I don't know, do all those things that you want to have time to do so that you can actually get the most out of that time off. The next tip is to minimize your to-do list. Sometimes it's not possible to just take a full-on break. Sometimes we have commitments that we have to stick to, things that have deadlines. In that case, I would recommend minimizing your to-do list as much as possible. Put aside anything that is maybe a personal project that is not on deadline, that you don't have outside commitments to, so you can just focus on the most important project. You can focus on the projects with upcoming deadlines. If something doesn't have a deadline till a lot longer, maybe you want to wait until you've gotten past these closer deadlines, so you're only focusing on one thing at a time. Sometimes it's impossible to take a full break and clear your to-do list entirely, but just minimize it as much as you can. The next tip is to ease back into writing slowly. So if you're really burned out, you've taken a break, and you try to jump back in full force with really high goals and big word counts and difficult writing tasks, you probably don't have the energy for that yet. So ease yourself into writing slowly. Start with just really light word count goals, maybe no goals at all. You can just try doing a writing sprint here or there, or lighter writing tasks that don't feel as straining. Maybe a bit of brainstorming or rereading old work. You probably won't be able to jump in at full capacity, so just ease yourself back into writing slowly. The next tip is to intake material instead of outputting it. Intaking a lot of stories is really important actually as a writer. While you're maybe on a break or if you're feeling really burned out, try to get a ton of creative input. And this can come from various different mediums. Reading, of course, is fantastic, but even getting a variety of mediums, visual mediums like TV shows, movies, audio mediums can be really helpful, podcasts, audiobooks, music, even interactive mediums like video games, whatever it is that you prefer. If you think about outputting stories and then intaking stories is kind of what's going to recharge your ability to create again. It's also just a great opportunity to feel productive while you're watching movies. Like, this is actually productive for my writing. But I genuinely do think that it is productive. Getting a range of creative input and abundant creative input can be really, really helpful. It's also really important to know that this is just normal. It's really common for writers to deal with issues like burnout or writer's block and feel like they're the only ones who deal with this, and so they must not be real writers. When that's not the case at all, most writers deal with this. It's quite normal, and a lot of the time burnout happens when you don't have control over your schedule. A lot of the time it happens because you're not able to take breaks when you want to, and so you're forced to push yourself past capacity. Like I said, the worst burnout I ever had was when I was a student, and it's because for years I didn't have control over when I could take breaks, when I had to be writing stories, when my deadlines were, and naturally that led to burnout. It's a very normal thing that most people will deal with when they're in higher stress situations, and it doesn't make you less of a writer at all. You also want to write projects that feel the easiest and most fun. If you're dealing with burnout, sometimes the magic ingredient is fun. The more fun you're having writing a project, the easier it'll feel to write, and the less straining it'll be. It's easier to get burned out when you're working on something really difficult that's really challenging you, and of course that can be good. It's really good to be challenged creatively. Whatever you feel would be the most fun to write right now is probably going to be the easiest thing to write when you're coming out of a burnout. And finally, you want to think about what led to this burnout so you can do your best to avoid it next time. If you're dealing with a bad writing burnout, the best thing that you can get out of it, if there's any lesson to be drawn, is to think about what led to this and therefore how you can avoid it in the future. Maybe in the future you'll be more mindful of taking breaks so you don't kind of run yourself into the ground, or you'll kind of know what your capacity is in terms of workload. Taking note of what led to burnout and also what helps you manage it and get out of it will make it easier next time it happens and might even avoid the problem altogether. So that's all for this video on avoiding burnout as well as managing it when it happens. If you've dealt with writing burnout, which my guess is most people have, I would love to hear what strategies helped you manage that or get out of that. So please feel free to share your experiences and what you've learned in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, bye.